Shalom and welcome to the TBN Israel podcast. I'm joined by my counterpart somewhere way in rural America, Shalom Yair Pinto.
Hey Mati, it's great to be here. It only looks like it's nice weather here. It's actually freezing. I don't know degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit. It's like a few degrees about freezing level here, but it's a beautiful day.
Well, very different. So here's what we're talking about today. If you're joining us or you've lived under a rock in the last year and a half, today we're talking about the new ground offensive in Gaza. And let me frame this conversation. There are army brigades that are being moved in. There's a Philadelphia Corridor number 2 that has been opened up. There's been a Trump and Netanyahu meeting that is talking about reshaping the Middle East altogether. And how does that affect the Gaza Strip? How does that affect Rafah? How does it affect Khan Yunis? How does it affect the fate of the hostages? We're talking about today on the TBN Israel podcast.
And guys,
did you want to
before we get started, yeah, for sure. Before we get started, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us reach more people around the world with what's happening in Israel. And by the way, you are watching. I mean, I'm here in the United States and I'm seeing you personally. So it's just amazing to see the love that you show towards Israel and towards us personally here. It's really, really amazing. And today we have a lot to discuss because basically the ground operation in the Gaza Strip just resumed to an intensity that we've never seen before. And this is according to Palestinian sources.
Recently.
Yes. Yeah, so Rafah is being basically evacuated. It became a ghost town, and the IDF is operating there, destroying every terror infrastructure, every building that is related to Hamas, and that's a lot of buildings. Talking about terror tunnels, Mati, I think that's only 20% of the terror tunnels in the Gaza Strip were destroyed by the IDF, meaning that we still have 75% of the tunnels that we need to dismantle. It's a lot of tunnels, thousands of tunnels in the Gaza Strip.
We were just talking about this in the previous live that we recorded. Well, we didn't record it. We went live. When I say we recorded it live, we didn't record it. There is no day where there will be no more tunnels left in the Gaza Strip. And just the way the land there is made up, the softness of the rocks, how easy it is to dig, how far the water table is. It's really easy to tunnel down in the Gaza Strip. They've been doing it since prehistoric times. There is no day where there will be no tunnels. I think the interesting thing here is I think the IDF has changed in the way it operates, and we're seeing that. My sense was, and I think also the Hamas and possibly Hezbollah had this sense that after the war would end, that the IDF would go to the way it operated previously. As in, we'd accommodate them violating ceasefire agreements, and we take things easy. And instead of doing that, the IDF is pedal to the metal on a regular basis in the Gaza Strip. I mean, yeah. I'm just looking at the way the forces there have been operating. I mean, we're at full-on war. The IDF has not forgotten that we were at war and gone back to pre-October 7th, methodology. We're at war. We're fighting against an enemy that we are determined to destroy. And we're also determined to prevent Hamas from gaining a foothold on a military level again throughout the Gaza Strip. And that's what it looks like.
Yeah, you are correct 100%. And I think that it's important to explain to our viewers the situation currently with the negotiations. Okay, so at the moment, Hamas is agreeing to release only 5 living hostages, while Israel is demanding 11 living hostages for an exchange of a 50-day ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Okay, so this is the situation currently. Of course, Hamas wants us to open all the humanitarian aid corridors to provide them with more aid, more supplies into the Gaza Strip in exchange for the release of these hostages. In total, in the Gaza Strip, we still have 59 hostages. Out of them, around 22 are still alive, and the rest were murdered by Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So this is the situation, and it looks like there is a new deal emerging that will release 8 living hostages in exchange for less of a time of a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. This is the deal that Special U.S. Envoy Witkoff is working on. And it seems like this is the direction that we are heading towards. And at the same time, you have a deal by Egypt that was proposed, but was rejected by Israel because the deal had a clause that included that we will start negotiating on ending this war immediately before Hamas is complete. This is something that's unacceptable to Israel in this stage, and also to the United States. So it's not just Israel alone unaccepting this deal.
Thank you, America.
I think I need a haircut, Mati, by the way.
Yeah.
I think I need a haircut, Mati. By the way, guys, hairdressers in Israel are way better than anywhere in the world. It's kind of like the falafel that we invented. So hairdressers are top of the line in Israel. So I'm waiting till I get back to Israel to cut my hair. I don't know if that would be a mistake because it's going to be very messy and long in a few days.
So where is the forces on the ground, where the IDF is right now in the Gaza Strip?
Yeah, let's first of all talk about the number of people that are in the Gaza Strip. And then I'm going to break this down. One, just to recap on what Yair was saying is there's several offers on the table. One of them involves the Egyptian offers, and another one is a more direct communication that involves the U.S. envoy. Then, so here we get to the point. Who's on the ground? We have some of the most battle-hardened and most substantial fighting forces that the IDF carries. I mean, think about it this way. We have in northern Gaza Strip, we have the 252nd Division. Again, these are names that are known in every Israeli military unit. In the south, in the Rafah area, we have the 143rd Division that's pushing towards Tel Sultan, and the 36th Armored Division, which is one of the most elite armored divisions in the army. It's starting its first raids along the Morag Corridor.
You called it Philadelphia too.
Philadelphia too.
Yeah, Morag Corridor basically is separating between Rafah, which is bordering on the Egypt-Gaza border, and the Khan Yunis Palestinian city in the Gaza Strip. Yeah. So it's another, separation corridor that prevents Hamas from moving resources, weapons.
Yeah, and just to explain the name, Morag is the name of a military road. It doesn't mean, I know people thought it was morgue and thought it was some weird Hebrew name. It's just, we dropped Yair.
Just talk.
I'll keep talking then. So just to explain this, because the name I think is confusing to many people. The army names routes. There could be a name, like a road could be Road 60, and it has a different military name. Morag route is the name of a military road. And I know this because when I was a young tanker, I would drive up and down that road, and I remember the road. Anyway, okay, so are we ready to continue, Sam? So we were talking about the placement of the units throughout the Gaza Strip, because it contextualizes how much force the IDF is putting into this combat, how much pressure is being applied there. And I think this is the place to really understand why we're doing this. The IDF isn't attacking for the sake of attacking, and it's not going after Hamas just for the sake of violence. There is a philosophy here. And the philosophy is a pressure ladder, maximum pressure on Hamas to bring them back to the negotiation table.
And I think that the pressure on Hamas is, working to a degree, because they have so much food and gas and medical supplies that they stored up throughout this war, from stealing everything from the population of the Gaza Strip, that they can play it hard to get and play hardball with the negotiations for, I would say, at least a month or a month and a half. But I'm not sure that Israel and the United States have this time to eat. And that's why we're increasing the military pressure to the next level, and also increasing the diplomatic pressure. And I think that's the only way to move forward, because Trump wants this Gaza situation to be over with so he can deal with Abraham Accords 2.0, and he needs this Palestinian conflict with Israel to be over. So this is, I think, the situation. We're kind of in a pickle here. But one thing that is working very well, I think, is the Israeli mechanism to voluntarily deport Palestinians and immigrate them to third-party countries that are willing to accept them. because we are hearing more and more countries that are willing to accept Palestinian refugees, either temporarily or for good. And I think that the Palestinian people are going to move on their own out of the Gaza Strip if we just help them. And by helping them, it means protecting them from Hamas, because Hamas is threatening them physically with bullets and guns, and not to leave the Gaza Strip because they need them as human shields. So I think this is our strongest lever of pressure against the Hamas terrorist organization, the Palestinian people within the Gaza Strip themselves.
Did you see that headline that came out? Was it yesterday, Katz?
Yeah.
Was that yesterday? Israel Katz, our defense minister, comes out yesterday with this headline where he's pressuring Hamas indirectly, and he's saying, just FYI, what was the number? 60 planes? 60 planes have already taken off from an Israeli airport full of Gazans leaving to another country. And he doesn't say where.
Indonesia.
Was it Indonesia? I missed
it. They send them in Muslim country. That they will have, but they took first time 1,000, then again 1,000, but it's not forever.
But
yeah, temporary is the new forever.
Yeah,
you know.
So anyway, you read this headline, and it's so interesting to see the Israeli government speaking directly to Hamas, and it's saying to them, "Say whatever you want. Everyone in the world, check this out. The people of Gaza have voted with their feet." And they've taken their feet and they've walked onto a plane because they said, we have had enough of what Hamas has done in the Gaza Strip. And more so, to top that off, look, we had multiple days of demonstrations in the Gaza Strip, something you never see. People in the hundreds rising up against Hamas because they've had enough of the violence of Hamas and the destruction they brought to the Gaza Strip. And Hamas did the usual. They went and they killed them and they beat them and they beat their families, and
with that they couldn't stop the demonstration.
Yeah, and even with that they weren't able to stop it. Yeah, they're a vile organization. They have never changed, and they're not going to change.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. And I think that the fear that everybody in Israel is voicing now is the fact that the IDF is operating in neighborhoods that they've never operated before.
Thankfully.
Okay, and before we didn't operate there because of fear of Israeli hostages being held amongst the civilian population in these neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But I think that because of the time pressure on ending this conflict, this time Israel is also operating and taking the risk and operate in these areas because I think that also Israel understands that Hamas needs the hostages because that's their only card to stay alive. So they have no interest in losing the living hostages that they have left in the Gaza Strip. Okay. So I think that their threats to execute Israeli hostages is in vain. I don't think that they're gonna do anything about that.
Yeah. Let's play devil's advocate for a second on that statement.
What's that? I need to understand what does that mean. Devil's advocate?
Like playing red team, blue team. So
okay,
we've said, and I think everyone says, oh, look, once the Hamas loses the hostages, they'll cease to exist. And I don't know that that's true. I don't know that's true because Hamas is an ideological movement. And they're highly effective in recruiting people from the Palestinian people of the Gaza Strip, and recruiting to their ideology. And they've done so for, longer than both of us have been alive. And I don't know. I think even without the hostages, it's not like Israel is going to swoop in, or the IDF is going to swoop in and start, massacring the people of the Gaza Strip. We're still the same army that we were. We uphold human life to the greatest degree. So as long as there are people in the Gaza Strip, the ideology of Hamas will persist to a certain degree. I mean, maybe not to the same degree, but to a certain degree. And even now that we've taken off the gloves and we've been, swinging wildly, trying to eliminate Hamas strongholds within the Gaza Strip, there still are hostages. And with or without them, we're going to have to continue to fight against Hamas. I don't see that changing.
Yeah, I'll tell you that, Mati. From my experience in fighting in the Gaza Strip, it was very, very hard to fight knowing that some areas are off limit because of potential hostages being held there. So it's basically like fighting with your hands tied behind your backs, which we already had that because Hamas was firing rockets and fighting us from hospitals, from mosques, from schools. So that was already, one area that we received fire, but we couldn't respond because of international laws and because of attempting not to harm the civilian population of the Gaza Strip. So that was already, one thing that was very, very hard for us. But another layer was areas that we had like intelligence about hostages potentially being there, and just the IDF was not operating there because of fear of harming our own hostages. So, if we remove that, that lever of stress, or it will be a little bit easier, or I would say a lot easier, to conduct a war to destroy Hamas. We will not be able to destroy the ideology, like ISIS is still existing in Iraq and around the Middle East. It's impossible to destroy an ideology, but you can destroy the central command centers. You can destroy the leaders at a time, and then that weakens the spread of that organization or that ideology to more places. Will it be harder for them to recruit new recruits if there are other jobs in the Gaza Strip? Let's say there are jobs in the Gaza Strip that are commanded by either Israel or a third-party government, can be the Saudis or somebody else. So people can go and bring food to their families without being a terrorist, without digging tunnels, without stealing money from humanitarian organizations and selling it to their own population. So if you give options, I think people will choose better. But at the moment, they don't have any options but working for Hamas.
Yeah, so we're in an interesting place right now in the Gaza Strip. There's multiple external parties that are trying to reach an agreement, several. And the main one right now is the Egyptians. They've been trying really, really hard. I think they have a vested interest in the Gaza Strip. They want to stabilize. They want to raise their sort of stature in the region, dramatically so at least. And what they've been trying to do is bring an agreement where we receive some of the hostages, and Hamas in turn receives a limited ceasefire. And I look at all of this and I feel like, why are we having this conversation? Like, we've been sort of slowly receiving a small number of hostages every time, but it never really materializes to anywhere near all of them. And every time we have a ceasefire agreement with Hamas, they immediately go back to rearming, redistributing weapons, rebuilding positions that have been previously destroyed. Why are we letting them do that? Let's keep fighting until Hamas is no longer there, and we, under fire and under pressure, get the hostages out. I feel like that's the way to go about it.
Yeah, I think this is the only way that we've seen some results now, also in this conflict. When we had the long ceasefire agreement, Hamas was not nudging from their demands, not even centimeter or like a meter left or right. But now that we increase the pressure, the militarily, that we remove the humanitarian aid shipments and supplies to the Gaza Strip, close the borders, and target the leaders of Hamas, now they're starting to talk. So yes, I completely agree. This is the way, and we must increase the pressure and make a shift, like a swift military campaign, together with intense diplomatic pressure to retrieve our hostages from the Gaza Strip, because I don't think the people of Israel and the United States and our allies have the time to carry out a war that will last us an extra 2 years in the Gaza Strip. Madi, how long do you think this will go on in the Gaza Strip at this intensity? That's actually like something I want to hear. You think it's going to be a few months, half a year, 2 years? I think specifically,
at Gaza, at this intensity, I think it's going to be max another month, maybe 6 weeks, max.
Mm-hmm.
We've already cleared out many of the strongholds that Hamas held in the Gaza Strip. We've done.
They're saying half a year.
I said at this intensity. and then I think sometime in the summer, we're in April right now. By the time we're in June, July, maybe a little more than 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks, we're going to start scaling back.
Yeah.
We're going to end up back where we were during the ceasefire. And where that is expanded military presence everywhere that is let's call it a junction within the Gaza Strip. So then it's Southern Corridor, for sure. both in intelligence, aerial assets, and military assets. Philadelphia Corridor, for sure. Military or naval blockade to a certain degree, absolutely. And then also limitations of movements within the Gaza Strip in certain areas. I think that's going to persist for a very long time. I don't think it's going to be 6 months. I think it's going to be considerably longer than that. Because until Gaza's rebuilt, and Gaza can only be rebuilt until once Hamas is dealt with, and Hamas is only fully dealt with when we've received the hostages, only then can we start think of scaling back. So we have a long time.
Yeah, Mate, you're talking about Gazans rebuilding. Maybe the United States will start building the golf courses and the resorts in Gaza instead of the Palestinians. You know, we have already multiple countries that are willing to accept Palestinians. Egypt said that they'll build a Palestinian city in Sinai. Jordan will take children, orphans, and other humanitarian cases. Indonesia already took a few, and then you have Somaliland. I actually don't exactly know where that is in Africa, and they're going to take some Palestinians as well. So maybe the rebuilding process will not involve the Palestinians building Gaza themselves, and that might be actually faster. You know, I think.
We have a problem going back to where we were talking about the agreement that the Egyptians are trying to barter. So it talks about sort of like key pieces, and the key pieces are you really release several hostages, and I don't think the numbers even matter right now because
they want to free them in again one and then couple of days, one again, and they're going to go over the same scene that we saw.
Yeah, enough of that. Just the thought of like going through all of that again, it sickens me. Enough.
That was terrible. That was terrible, Mati. I remember that every Saturday, the whole country of Israel is sitting in the living room, looking at the TV, praying to see which hostage is going to get released. How will he look? Is he going to be walking? Is he going to be like a walking skeleton, so skinny? Is he going to be smiling, not smiling? What's the reaction will be on his face? And then going to see the reunion with his family members in Israel. It was basically heartbreaking for millions of people across Israel and around the world. Yeah. That was like psychological torture on a nationwide level.
That was their goal. Their goal was to torture us. And I feel like this is like, I don't often like get emotional about these kind of things. Just the thought of like repeating that and going back. One, we've sacrificed so much already to fight against Hamas and the Gaza. To go back to that sort of phase where we're playing this game where they release 2 hostages and then 3 hostages, and then they're late on purpose by a few hours, and then they bring the wrong person or the wrong body. Enough. Let's crush Hamas until they're gone. And it just doesn't make sense not to do that. It doesn't make sense to go back to this 60-day or 70-day. The numbers don't matter. 80 days, it doesn't matter. Why are we negotiating a ceasefire with a terrorist organization that is holding our hostages? Give us our hostages back or else. And we should just keep fighting until the for else is fully materialized. Too. No, look, for once, the U.S. President's office is sitting behind us and cheering us on. Fight for yourself. Fight for yourself. You know, keep defending yourself until your enemies are destroyed. Let's do it.
We are the best entertainment in the Middle East.
Yeah. Why are we letting Hamas to get a stronghold again in the Gaza Strip? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, definitely. And Mati, just wanted to say that since the beginning of this war, the country of Israel has suffered significant blows also on the, soldiers that passed away or were injured, but also on the economic side. And many people in the comments and other ways reached out to us and said, how can we help Israel in this situation? How can we practically help? So of course, prayers are the best thing that you guys can do. But we always like to give you some options of practical help. Yeah. So today, one option that is available is a great solution and also a great gift to your loved ones for the Easter holiday. Okay, so Artzabox. Artzabox is one of our partners here at TBN Israel. They are creating amazing boxes and filled with good stuff made by Israeli small businesses, small business owners, artisans, and ship it to the United States for you guys. Okay, so because the situation is so hard in Israel financially, this is a great way to bless these businesses in Israel. And for you, it's a great gift for the holiday season. So now, Arza is doing a Arza Easter box special, okay, for the Easter time. And because of it, we at TBN Israel are giving them basically giving you, if you enter the code in the Arza Box website, okay, the code is TBN East, okay, TBN East. You will get 15% off your Arza Box subscription, okay? So their website is www.arzabox.com. Make a purchase, get a box for Easter, and also support us at TBN Israel to create more content and the nation of Israel. I think it's a triple win. Mati, what do you think?
I agree completely. And I think we both experienced the beauty of the boxes that they create. And I'm not a big fan of like buying big box and, you know, like mass-produced things. I like things that are well-made. And Arza Box really does an amazing job of doing that. I love the partnership that we've had with them. One, they're just great people. And two, the way they support the community is something that I find to be deeply commendable. And in this time where it's still difficult for some people to imagine coming to Israel right now, and you should come to Israel right now, by the way. Now is the time to come to Israel.
Safe.
It's safe to come
Correct.
to Israel. It's peaceful in Israel. It's green in Israel. Come to this land. But before you book your flight, and if it takes you a couple more months to book your flight, subscribe to Arza Box. That was a smooth transition.
Yeah, I liked it. It's very good. And if you just said the word subscribe, Tomer already is thinking, we need to tell them to subscribe to TBN Israel, to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Immediately.
So just kidding. But I think we're pushing it too much. So let's continue talking about the situation. Let's say, okay, let's play this game, Mati. Okay, Israel defeated Hamas completely next week. It's a possibility. I really pray for that. And released all of our hostages, okay? What will happen next? You think the Houthis will still launch rockets at us? Because Houthis are only supporting, allegedly, you know, attacking Israel because of the situation with Hamas, because they're supporting the Hamas terrorist organization. So let's say this war ends. The Houthis will stop. You think they will completely stop launching attacks against Israel and against the ships in the Red Sea?
You know the expression, the writing was on the wall? So with the Houthis, the expression is the writing's on the flag. It's so clearly, abundantly clearly what they're planning to do. And it doesn't say, buy McDonald's, spread love, be kind. It says, death to Israel. It says,
death to America.
Death to America. It says,
curse the Jews. Yeah, it says, curse the Jews. Yeah.
Anyway, they're not good people. They're not going to change their ways anytime soon. They're a radical Islamic government, and they should be treated as such. And by the way, the U.S. has been treating them as such. They have been bombing them back to the Stone Age. And I'm not ashamed to say that I'm supportive of that. The Houthis in Yemen have been a destructive and terrible force to the people in there. They've been, just bringing death and destruction time and time again to the people of Yemen. And finally, someone is trying to stop them. And I think it's beautiful. The Yemenite people deserve better than that. Absolutely deserve. And I think this is also sort of an idea or a moment to zoom out. Hamas is one part of this. And the U.S. is trying to rebuild the power balance of the Middle East. And trying to do so in a way that isn't dependent on Iran continuing to spread violence and spread death and spread destruction in this region. And what they're doing is putting a huge amount of pressure on the Iranians and then trying to bring good forces to the table. Bring the Saudis, bring Israel, bring the Egyptians, bring the Jordanians. And I feel we're at this point where things could positively change in a dramatic way. They could also go terribly wrong really fast. I choose to believe that we're going the good way versus the terribly fast in a bad way.
Yeah. As well, but we just ended the war with Iran in Syria. The Assad regime collapsed completely, and then immediately we hear reports and we see tanks, troops mobilizing into the Assad bases closer and closer. to the borders with Israel. So one enemy falls and immediately another one rises in the Middle East, and we always need to be on high alert. And on the other hand, there's always hope, because just now Netanyahu and Trump discussed the fact that Turkey and Jerusalem should create this coordination mechanism to discuss the situation in Syria in order to battle ISIS and other radical forces in this land and in the Middle East. So it sounds great and good, but potentially, it can also escalate very, very, very fast in the situation in the Middle East. And Trump promised that he'll coordinate directly between President Erdogan and President Netanyahu, because allegedly he's a great guy. So Mati, the situation with Turkey and Israel is very, very frightening, and I think this is where our security attention should be looking towards, because Hezbollah is already weakened, the Assad regime fell, Al-Julani is trying to, gather the pieces in Syria, Hamas has collapsed, and it seems like the Iranian militias in Iraq decided, we don't want to be the next on the American agenda to be attacked, so we will consider putting down our arms and create some form of agreement with the official Iraqi government, because we don't want to be next on the Americans' hit list in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So it seems like Iran is taking a step backwards and now start time to regroup, rearm, and start rebuilding their proxies and their nuclear program. At the same time, that's what they've been doing for decades now. But then you have this emerging power, which is actually a NATO force in Turkey.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we, looking at, because troops, how many, they have like the largest militaries.
The biggest armies in the world, yeah. And
in the world.
Yeah, one of the best equipped armies in the world too. And what's interesting, I think, in everything you're saying is that you realize when you talk about these things that it's all connected. And I don't say this just for the sake of the sentence. It's like, if you don't resolve all of these things in one fell swoop, then it'll always persist as a problem, because you can't solve the militias of the Shias in Iraq unless Iran is weakened, because they'll refuse to come and have an agreement while the threat of Iran persists. And the Turks won't sign any kind of agreement unless they know that the US is, with its full force, reshaping the Middle East. And the Egyptians won't come to the table unless they know that Hamas is dealt with and removed. And then it gets even more complicated. And the Iranians won't do anything unless they know that the US is willing to go to war now. And so you have to sort of combine all of this at the same time, all of it, for anything to happen in a substantial way. And I think we're in a really interesting place in that sense, in the sense that regardless of what happens, the US and of course Israel, by fighting this extended war, has reshaped the power balance in this region to a place where for the first time in forever, we have the chance of doing something completely different in a good way. We have the chance of, as you said, finishing Abraham Accords, of bringing in the Saudis, of creating a virtuous cycle in this region, of eliminating much of the power and negative influence of the Iranians, and then bartering a deal. Hamas, Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, all of them in one line together to make a new Middle East. And I don't mean to sound like some hopeless optimist, but we could see peace in our time. We could see something different in this region. We could see a future, even in the near months, where some of the negative forces in this area are eliminated or pushed back, and much of their power is stripped away in a way that we haven't seen in years. And Israel fighting this extended war and weakening Iranian proxies was the big step that led into this moment. And then the US positioning so much force in this region is sort of the last move that really locks Iranians to having to negotiate. I feel hopeful, I have to tell you. And I feel like we could reach an agreement that we have never imagined before, and that agreement will break the forces of evil in this region and bring in a time of prosperity and good. I think we can really see that in our lifetime.
Amen. Yeah, amen, Mati. I completely agree, and I really look forward, and I see already the steps being taken towards that direction in Lebanon with the new government trying to push out the radicals, to push out the terror elements, actually try to do something good for the people of Lebanon. And I think doing something good for the people of Lebanon will mean opening relationships with Israel. So I don't think it will be far-fetched that in the near future, of course, with the support of the United States and a broader financial cooperation in this region, Israel can have relationships with Lebanon. And that would be amazing. I mean, to go sit and drink coffee in Beirut, which is not a big drive from where we are in Jerusalem.
Yeah. I think this is a good place to wrap up things in, on this podcast. Yeah, this has been interesting. We've been talking a lot about, you know, everything that's happening in the Gaza Strip, the IDF's moves there, Turkey and how it's reshaping this region. We're living in treacherous times. All I can tell people is make sure you keep up to date with everything that TBN Israel releases. They're doing some good content. I'm joking, but it is really good content. And I'd say keep up to date with what your Bible says, because that really frames this entire conversation in a way that is much more holistic. Yair, have fun with the family in the US. Bring me back some steaks.
Yeah, definitely, Vati. Miss you guys. Stay safe and keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
Amen to that.
And see you again next day. Bye.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.